Gleeful Beasts. Behind the Glee.
Hello, and welcome to Gleeful Beasts Behind the Glee. I'm Joel Veitch, and today, as always, we're joined by the magnificent, resplendent, sparkling, and yes, gleeful Zezubulon Wonk. Hello, Zezubulon.
Good afternoon.
It's wonderful to have you with us, as always. It's an honour and a privilege.
It is, yes.
Yes, and today we would like to talk about one of the mainstays of your broadcasting career, a creature to which you've returned again and again.
Yes.
That being Timpson's Floof.
Ah, yes. Timpson's Floof.
Yes.
Before we begin, are you quite all right? You sound like you have some sort of disease.
Oh, I'm just getting over a touch of the dengue, but I'm very much on the mend.
It does sound like Baloof Fever from here.
Yes, I have been quite heavily belooved while out in the field, but
I can imagine.
Yes, but I'm nearly repaired now.
Excellent. The yellow pus has stopped coming out of the ear holes, is it?
Well, it was coming out of all of the holes actually,
Yes.
and it was actually jetting at one point, but it did require us to vacate the house because it was filling like a kind of inverse submarine full of pus. But
Yes, I mean, that is the worst kind of submarine, one that fills with pus.
it absolutely is. Whether it's under
I mean, the
water or
Russians
not.
found that in the Second World War.
Yes, they did. That was the end of their submarine fleet, I believe, wasn't it? The design
Yes.
flaw.
That filled them with a thick, viscous yellow pus once every half hour. They found it wasn't very practical.
No, it was directly on Stalin's orders, of course. That's
Yes, and no one would say no to him. Because
No,
he did have yellow pus that jetted from his ear holes once every half an hour.
yeah, like Old Faithful, but yes, but hourly, yeah. And he was convinced that would be a good idea for the submarines. But
Yes, he
Timpson's-
insisted on
Sorry.
airbrushing the pus out of all the photographs, of course.
Yes, of course. But Timpson's Floof, obviously carrier of the disease.
Of the Timpson's tick.
Yes, which I'm slowly recovering from now and reduced to a dribble of pus.
Yes, the Timpson's tick, when it bites you, gives you a Timpson's tickle.
Yes, yeah, which is a horrible misnomer for something which is agonisingly
for something
painful.
so very venomous and unpleasant, yes.
Yeah, it digs its little claws into you and takes a massive bite
Yes, and
out
it's
of
not
you.
small. It's about the size of a toddler's fist.
It is. Injects you with its evil kind of gland stuff. And
Yes.
then drops off to nibble on the mouthful of your flesh that it's nicked. And then within a couple of days, you start jetting pus from every orifice.
Of all the creatures, it does have the most evil glands.
It does. And quite often, you'll kind of walk into a village in an area where the Timpson's Floof is endemic, and you'll just see villagers rolling around on the floor, jetting pus like garden sprinklers, covering the entire area in thick yellow pus to the depth of about your thigh.
Well, that's how we find them, you see. That's how we identify that there's a floof in the area.
Yes.
The villagers jetting pus,
Yeah.
propelling themselves along the floor like small eddies of wind. But of course, they're not eddies of wind. They're human beings being jetted around by pus.
Yeah, and of course the smaller people, like small, slight women or toddlers even, can find themselves propelled quite substantial distances and quite high into the sky with the jetting, because it's the same force. However big you are, it's the same force that the pus jets out.
Yes.
Which is about that of a fire hose.
And unfortunately, many tour operators have found this such a delightful sight that they've arranged day trips to watch the jetting on what they like to call a Pus Bus.
Yes, yeah. Which I think really has to end, and we are mounting a campaign
Yes.
to try and bring a stop to this.
I mean,
awful
I like to
disease.
mount most things. Sometimes I mount their heads on my wall. Sometimes I just mount them, but I do mount a lot.
The real problem with these tours, obviously, is that we, as you well know, Zezubulon, have apprehended a couple of these tour operators and found them with containers filled with ticks, with
Yes.
the Timpson's tick, which they release into populations specifically to infect people in order to increase the tourist trade, which is deeply, deeply unethical. And
Yes, I mean,
very
some
stinky.
people have commented to me that it's quite a coincidence that Timpson's Floof should be so attacked by Timpson's tick. Of course, it's not a coincidence. It's because they were discovered by the same man. He discovered the Floof first, and then the tick seconds afterwards.
Yes, yeah. Because the Timpson's Floof is, of course, crawling with them, hundreds
Yes.
and hundreds hidden in the fur of any
Riddled.
given Floof. Yeah, they don't seem to attack the Floofs, do they? They seem to
No.
have grown in a kind of in a symbiotic relationship, evolved together. Because, of course, the Floofs will quite happily feast on the pus.
Yes, I mean, the pus is a delicacy to them, and the
Yes.
ticks seem to use the Floofs as a form of transport more than anything.
Yes, yeah, and obviously they can hide in their fur, so they're ideal bases from which to ambush passers-by.
Yes, much as we all are merely vehicles for our skeletons, the Timpson's Floof is just a delivery mechanism for ticks.
This is true. So when did you first encounter a Floof in the wild?
In the wild, this was, I believe, towards the end of the 1970s.
Right.
I was on one of my quite early trips, and I was out the back of my hut, where I was being led to see the vistas and the many exciting creatures. Once again, I was I was at risk of soiling myself because I had been attacked by the ticks.
Yes.
And I turned around. I saw two yellow orbs glowing in the darkness as I lowered my trouser. And I looked
Just
up.
the one trouser,
Just the
is it?
one
Yeah.
trouser. I like to go, I dress to the left. And
Yes.
I looked up, and there was a Floof. There in all its glory. It had escaped from its well, and it was crawling around on its belly, spraying ticks and pus everywhere.
Oh, wonderful. What a majestic sight.
Yes. It was. It then waved a little fist at me in quite a threatening fashion and disappeared into the dark.
Ah, okay. So did you find yourself worried you might be attacked, or
No,
did you
I
just-
believe the Floof, whilst a voracious predator, is also a timorous and cowardly creature that will back off if you adopt a wide stance. And as I was in the midst of defecating, my stance was very wide indeed.
Right. Well, that's...
I needed to get
that's-
purchase on a particularly difficult meal.
Yes. I mean, well, that all sounds like a wonderful way to encounter your first Floof.
Yes.
But was it the Floof that you were seeking on that expedition? Or
No. In that case, I was really just out to see what I could find. There was no specific aim to it. I shouldn't really have been there. I was, legally, I suppose, I was trespassing. But morally, I was exploring.
This was before you were a professional naturalist.
Yes, I mean, it was this incident that made me a professional naturalist. Before that, I was just a poacher.
Right. And by poaching, you mean, cooking things in a bath of
Yes, of warm milk in which I have put half an onion, maybe some cloves, and some nutmeg.
Yes. Well, that sounds great. So famously, the Floof will spend its days frolicking in the sunshine, feeling the wind in its long and lustrous
Lustrous,
hair,
yes.
and then will retire to the bottom of any well or sinkhole or deep pit that it can find, and try to ambush any toddlers, small children,
Yes, small
who
creatures.
might fall down.
Yes,
Yeah.
tiny bears. I mean,
yeah.
the well is something of a misnomer because, of course, it doesn't require a man-made structure. It just requires it to be subterranean, dark, and have some ready source of water. It likes it damp.
And also, of course, were you to fall down it, well is the last thing you'd be.
Yes, you'd be quite unwell,
Yes, absolutely.
as one of my cameramen found out.
Did he get devoured?
Not to begin with. Again, he was a larger man, so the Floofs approached him tentatively at first. But obviously, being a strict documentarian, I could not intervene. And so after a few weeks, he perished from dehydration, at which point they feasted on him. I won't lie.
And presumably the dehydration is a result, despite being at the bottom of a very damp well.
Well, the Floofs
The
wouldn't give him
result
any
of the-
water.
Right. Presumably he would have been infested with ticks and jetting
Oh, yes.
a great deal of
yes.
fluid from all of his orifices.
So,
right?
in some ways, his death from dehydration must have come as a relief.
Yes, I'm sure, because he would have been ricocheting off the walls.
Yes, hollering the
by-
whole time, "I'm just a few feet away. Please give me your arm. I'm sure I could get out."
Yeah.
But,
Or at least to the extent that he could get those words around the fire hose of pus coming out of his
yes,
mouth, along with everything else, his nose and eyes and ears and any other openings. Yeah, what a way to go, eh?
Absolutely terrific.
But all, and all part of nature's rich tapestry.
The glorious tapestry that we seek when we make our documentaries, and that's what we want to introduce people to, is the real majesty and wonder that can be found almost anywhere. If you just look around you, you can find something spraying pus too.
Yes. Many people obviously live lives of, misery and toil and drab, dreary jobs in drab, dreary places. Whereas he and what was his name? This
Colin.
Cameraman? Colin died in the most wonderful and glorious way, at one with the nature which he spent his life exploring.
He loved his job, and he died doing what he loved, ricocheting off rocky pillars.
Yes, while spraying foul, stinking,
stench-filled excretions.
Viscous yellow pus. So
rest in pus.
Rest in pus, indeed. Yes, as it says on his gravestone. Obviously there wasn't anything to bury, was there? Because he got
not really. He was quite. They were fairly thorough. They did leave a shoe, which I took back to his wife and 9 children. And they were, when I told them the story of what happened, they were all very moved. Very moved.
Yeah, I'm sure they were.
Quite happy, because he was quite an unpleasant man to them, I believe. But certainly they felt an emotion.
Yes, well, that's good. And feeling any emotion is a wonderful thing.
It is quite something. I've heard it's quite wonderful.
Yes. And it's something to which we can all aspire. And so how large is an adult floof?
An adult floof is the weight of a small hippopotamus if it was standing upright on its hind legs, covered in fur. It has the girth, roughly similar girth as well. And just as the hippopotamus is the most dangerous animal in the continent of Africa, the floof is the most dangerous anywhere in the known universe, except Africa, which is the hippo.
Right. And they're not related in any other way to the hippopotamus.
Oh, God, no. No.
These other these similarities are purely coincidental.
I imagine so. I mean, I can't imagine the mistake of nature that would have had to have led to the birth of a hairy, upright hippopotamus. I mean,
are we aware of any examples when a hippopotamus may have fallen into a hunting well and been devoured by floofs? Is that something that could have happened?
Once, I tend to believe that the floof would recognise the hippopotamus as a kindred creature and would perhaps take it in like a Mowgli or some other adoptive child.
Okay. But you've never seen that happen?
No. I mean, if that were to happen, that would be disastrous, and one certainly shouldn't try and arrange for things like that to happen so that they can happen on camera. That would be dreadfully unorthodox.
Right. Okay, so that would be just checking, that would be a bad idea.
It would be a very good idea for ratings, but it would be morally very, very wrong.
And just remind me where we stand on ratings versus morally wrong?
I mean, one doesn't like to take a public position on things like this because the internet is so fraught. People will take issue with anything you say. Almost any position any historical figure has espoused is unacceptable now, whether it be that most of Asia should belong to the Hun Empire, or indeed that the French should have been thoroughly thrashed throughout history. Someone on the internet will get cross if you say it, despite this being perfectly acceptable historical opinions to hold.
Yes. Well, I think when we're finished with this podcast, I might need to have a conversation with you about import or non-import of hippopotamuses, purely in a hypothetical context. Obviously.
Absolutely. Were one to choose to import them hypothetically, one would need a very strong cage, but if one knows a supplier of such cages, they can be had fairly easily for ready money. Because
I am aware of some research which has been done in transferring the Timpson's tick to using the hippopotamus as a carrier, which obviously could be potentially catastrophic in terms of overrunning a whole new continent.
Yes, it could be. I mean, that would be a very good way to hold the governments of the world to ransom, if one were of the mind to purposely infect a series of trained hippopotami with ticks from the Timpson's Floof, and to threaten to release them into the underground stations of the world's major cities. Would it seem to me be morally unacceptable, but again, probably quite effective.
Yeah, and it could be potentially, were you to run tours to watch the jetting of the Pus, as it's known.
Yes.
Could actually be substantially profitable.
Yes, and if they're already in the underground stations, then the jets of Pus can propel vehicles or people down the tubes of which the network is made, and actually might be an improvement on the current system.
Yes, plus it would lubricate the wheels.
Yes.
You'd be able to save quite a lot of money on grease.
And that is my major outgoing.
I know you spend a lot of money on greases, everyone, but
yes,
you do need an unusual
greases,
amount of
unguents,
lubrication.
ichors, all of them.
Yeah,
it's a never-ending litany of slightly mucus-like substances.
I mean, famously, nobody has ever managed to grip you because of the
thin
thick layer of grease.
membrane that covers my body. Yes, people have on occasion tried to wrestle me to the ground, but they can't get purchase on me because it's because of the membrane. I mean,
yeah, you've popped out of their grip like an oily sausage, haven't you?
Yes, I have what is technically known as a caul. That's C-A-U-L, which is it's been on me ever since birth, and I've never removed it because I like being able to slide underneath doors.
Yes, and who can blame you? Because it's a wonderful skill to have that I'm sure we're all very envious of. So Timpson's Floof, having had an encounter with a Floof in the wild purely accidentally, you then began your career as a professional naturalist.
Floof Wrangler.
Floof, yes, and you went on a Floof expedition, didn't you?
I did go on a Floof expedition, yes. Back in the day, I was presenting a television program called Circus Watch, in which I went around and collected species, not in the way we do now, to observe them, but to catch them for a circus, which would thoroughly abuse them for the entertainment of the general paying public.
In the good old days.
Yes, I mean, that's what that was what we thought of as education then. Nowadays, people have very different opinions, but I think 400, 500 people at a time in a big top is a very good way of educating the public. Still, I'm old-fashioned like that. And so at the time, I was trying to capture them in what I can only call nets and bring them back to the UK, where we would exhibit them in front of hordes of baying, red-faced Boltonians.
Well, that sounds wonderful. And were you using the classic chair and whip arrangement to keep them under control?
No, the Floof actually enjoys being whipped. It doesn't have any deterrent effect at all. We had to use a little pitchfork, tiny little pitchforks. Right.
And how about the chairs? Because I understand a Floof will happily eat a chair as a snack.
So you can't use an ordinary wooden chair. They will snap it like kindling. But so you have to use a Chesterfield. A Chesterfield and a pitchfork is the way to control a Floof.
Okay. Well, this sounds like
I say
a very
it
good...
could be a trident. You could use any sort of pronged instrument.
Oh, well, that's good to know, because I've got a lot of tridents but don't actually have any pitchforks. So
I can imagine.
That'll stand me in good stead. Yeah. A large collection of tridents.
That's because of the many times you've defeated the gods of the sea.
Yes, indeed. And so you went on these expeditions regularly throughout the late 70s and into the early 80s?
Yes, they were very successful. I caught and I subdued and brought back more creatures than any other human being has. I've been responsible for more ecological devastation than I think any other human being in history.
Yeah, which is quite a claim to fame.
It is.
And the reason you originally made a Knight of the British Empire, I believe.
Yes, it was for my services to destroying, specifically in that case, the colonies.
For subjugating nature to the will of mankind.
Yes, to the will of the Queen.
Yeah, to the will of specifically the Queen.
The Queen, yes. It was because there was a suspicion at the time that the natural world didn't have sufficient respect for the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. So what I had to do was traverse the globe and show nature what's what, and exactly who was in charge.
Exactly. These were the days when Britain was great and everybody knew exactly where they stood on these things.
Yes, and you did stand on these things. If you could stand on them, you did.
Exactly. But then from the mid-'80s, obviously, perceptions began to change and you started having to film and talk about these creatures rather than just fight them into submission and drag them into a life of subservience. So how did that transition work for you?
It was a new era, of course. The 80s, as we will all know, were a time of unquestioned kindness and gentility.
Yes.
And that was that motivated us to record the activities of the creatures rather than to enslave them. So we went around and we started just talking about them and looking at them, and that seemed to work just as well.
Well, this is wonderful, isn't it? And you did, so in those early days, people were aware of the frolicking behaviours of the Floofs, but nobody had actually seen their hunting technique.
No.
So how did you discover, because it was you who discovered, wasn't it?
It was. Some say discover, some say entice them into. There is a theory that they were an entirely peaceful creature until I fed them the blood of toddlers, which gave them the taste for it.
Right.
Because no one had seen them eating, I brought a number of potential foods with me. There were toddlers. There was, it was just like a pallet full of toddlers mainly. But there were, but they took to it like a duck to millet. They fell upon it and really, really obviously enjoyed it very, very much. And since then, they haven't eaten anything else.
Right. Okay. So I guess we'll never know the causation of that. But obviously, there's they do.
It would be very much a coincidence if I had happened to turn up with a toddler and that just happened to be their favourite food. I mean,
although there's no recorded instances of them eating any toddlers until that incident.
No, before that it was mainly leaves.
Yeah, and now they like a lot of toddlers.
They
like
do eat a lot.
All the toddlers end up getting eaten, don't they?
Yes. Which is why we must maintain our well fences at all costs.
Yes, absolutely. So I believe you're the first person to have documented their ritual dance as well, which they use to attempt to persuade their dark gods to summon more toddlers and other foods to their well.
Yes, Timpson's lambada, as it's known, is a strange gyration that they make every afternoon in the hope that a toddler will fall down the well. And if I'm nearby and I can help in any way, I will, of course, luzz one down for them.
Well, this is interesting, Zezubulon. Does this imply that in their eyes, because I was going to ask you if you knew anything about these dark gods to which they dance and whether there was any evidence of their dancing being effective, but it does sound rather like their dark god might be you.
Well, I mean, that would be very flattering. Having discovered the species and popularised them in this country through prodding and circuses, and later through exposing them to the world, I do think it would only be fair to be thought of, in a metaphorical sense, as their dark god. And as I provide them with a ready supply of fresh toddlers, maybe in a very real sense as well.
And you do wait for them to do the ritual dance before you throw the toddlers to them.
Yes,
well.
I mean that again is we've got a very strict rule in documentaries. One doesn't interfere. So to give them any which might prevent their doing their lovely dance would be affecting their behaviour, and that would be utterly unacceptable. It would be dreadfully unprofessional.
I see. So, from the point of view of a Timpson's floof, the ritual dance does work basically 100% of the time.
Well, as long as I'm around, yes.
Yeah. What happens if you're not around? Have you got any idea what happens then?
We will never know.
Right.
I mean, I do make sure that there are a number of kindergartens nearby, which I've set up with my own money for times when I'm not there. But who knows what happens?
I mean, we do hear stories of terrible slaughter.
I mean, we do. But we hear lots of things. I mean, the internet is people can say anything they like nowadays. We've lost the concept of objective truth, so we've got no way of knowing.
Right. So there literally is no objective truth, then?
There is, but it is simply that which is recorded by cameras and broadcast on public service broadcasters. Anything else is probably a lie.
Okay, so it's not so much that these slaughters don't happen or aren't your fault. It's more that the mere question of whether such things happen is itself a pointless exercise.
Yes, it would take a braver man than me to come to any sort of decision as to whether or not facts were or were not true.
Okay, so what can you tell
a braver
us about...
or more accurate man.
Yes. What can you tell us about the life cycle of the floof? Because we have observed them with, in family units with smaller floofs or flooflets or flooflings, as they're called.
Yes, flooflings.
Yes. Do you know how?
Well,
how they
I mean, yes,
we split like amoebas, or
what we have
bud?
So far ascertained about the life cycle is that they start very, very small, then they get very, very big, and that's as much as we've gleaned.
Right, because I know there was some conjecture that they just kind of concentrate very hard and strain and then split down the middle. And I know there was also some conjecture that little tiny floofs bud from the skin of larger floofs.
That may be the case. It's a reasonable assumption. My personal belief is that the floofs eat and eat and eat, and then explode in a shower of flooflings, which are carried by the wind to essentially as spores across to another well.
And each of those spores, if you were to look at it under the microscope, would be a tiny floofling.
Yes.
Fully formed, but just very small.
Very small, curled into a small ball, perhaps wailing joyously as the wind carries it to its new dark, terrible shelter.
Yeah, and then doing its little dance in a tiny, tiny way.
Yes, yeah. I do like the dance.
Yes, you do like the dance. Which is there any evidence of them having done the dance before you began rewarding the dance?
Well, as the only person who's collected evidence of them is me, it's very difficult to say. There is, no, essentially, I have all of the film. If you want film of one doing a dance, you have to buy it from me. I do very reasonable rates for stock Floof footage. Get in touch at Zezubulon Wonk.com.
So I did many years ago have a conversation with Collin before he
Collin
met his fate.
Yes,
or fortunately met his fate, whichever way you look at it.
Yes, I mean I had to stamp on his fingers a bit to get him to stay down, but yes, it was.
Yeah, I mean he did tell me that he had a tape at home of you showing a floof the dance back in the very earliest days.
I think,
but I mean, obviously, it was very shortly after that he ended up dead in the bottom of a well and devoured by floofs.
Yes, I think Colin may have confused the causation in that what I may have been doing was reflecting back to the floof the behaviours which I'd seen in an attempt to communicate, to establish a ground level of behaviour for both of us. So if I saw them dancing or looking as if they wanted to dance or simply looking hungry for a toddler, I may have demonstrated a dance of my own, which may have led to the plummeting of toddlers from above.
I see. But of course, we'll never know for sure because...
No, we won't.
As you described, Colin did fall down that well very shortly after I had that conversation with him.
And he perished magnificently.
He did. And then when the expedition returned home, that was the day after that was when you accidentally burned down the old production office with all records going back
It did, yes.
The beginning of
that was
time.
There was a tragedy.
Yeah. Oh well, so I suppose we'll never know. But as you say, what is knowing anyway? In this
Precisely.
context?
In a world without knowledge, we know as the one-brained man is king.
That implies the existence of men with many brains.
Yes.
Or at least plural brains.
Well, I mean, it's not for me to comment on what experiments might or might not be being done by the government as we speak.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, that's fine. Is there anything else that we should know about the majestic floof, Timpson's floof? Oh, I'll tell you what we haven't covered actually.
Yes.
Is Timpson himself, the discoverer of the floof and the tick, and how he came to discover it. And is he a hero of yours?
Timpson? No, he's not. He was a dreadful man. Oik. He was actually my assistant on an early expedition, and just insisted on running 4 or 5 yards ahead of me and naming things after himself. He was quite simply a dastard.
Right. Yeah, and that's it. That's all.
That's it.
And,
yes, anyone who wants any more information about the Floofs should feel free to get in touch with my production company, who will sell them footage and maybe an exclusive feeding and touching experience with some caged Floofs.
And Timpson obviously disappeared mysteriously on one of those expeditions with you in the early days, not long after the discovery of the Floof.
Yes, he may well have been eaten.
But I guess we'll never know.
But we'll never know. What is knowledge?
Yeah, no, quite. So, I mean, what is, for you, the single most remarkable or impressive thing about Timpson's Floof?
Oh, I think it's the dancing. I think one can't help but be moved when one sees its pelvic gyrations. They are a relic of a simpler time when people believed in gods that would or would not feed them. They remind us of our own antecedents. I think, yes, it's definitely the dancing, which is both magnificent and, may I say, slightly sensuous.
I am aware that there have been some slightly unpleasant rumours about that aspect of the dance and your involvement in it, the sensuous nature. I mean, obviously, I don't want to glorify any of these disgusting rumours with the air of the oxygen of publicity. But, I mean, just for the record, this is an opportunity for you to just stamp on any kind of idle
people. I mean, I would love to stamp on idle people. I consider idle people to be, they're what's wrong with Britain today, the idle.
Right. And what would you have done with them?
I would feed them to the Floofs if the Floofs would eat them. You would have to wait for them to die of dehydration. I think we could probably arrange that. You know, first week out of work, fine. Here's whatever it is, £47.50. Second week, it's the Floofs for you.
Yes. You are extremely good friends with the King, obviously.
Oh,
is
yes.
that not something that you could just get instituted as policy?
I mean, he says it would cause a constitutional crisis. I say it would cause one not to do it. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I think we can all get behind that, Zezubulon. Yeah, maybe a national campaign should be in order.
Yes. Feed them to the Floofs.
Yes. Well, I feel. Do you feel that we've covered everything we need to cover on the
Yes, I think
Floofs?
so. I think that probably just about does it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if any of our listeners have any questions,
then they should just keep them to
Timpson's
themselves.
Floof,
Just keep them,
Yeah, they should definitely not bother you with them because you
God, no.
simply do not have the time
all the
to
inclination.
deal with, or the inclination to deal with this kind of time-wasting nonsense from the uninformed masses.
Absolutely. My job is to be an educator, not to answer silly questions.
Yes, and they can find the answers to any questions they might have by simply having a look at
ZebulonWonk.com and they can download any number of the back episodes of the documentaries there.
Yes, having sent you the 1 kilogram of gold bullion.
Yes, or a postal order for the same.
Yes, or I believe in the absence of gold bullion, you do these days accept donations.
PayPal.
Well, I was going to say, are you not accepting blood these days?
Oh, yes. Oh, God, yes. Yes. You never get enough blood. You can't have enough blood.
A weekly couple of pints of blood.
Yes, that's for our subscription service. Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. For those of you who don't carry bullion. Okay, well, I mean, obviously we will be back soon to discuss another creature from your long and illustrious career educating the masses about the wonderful nature of this world.
Yes.
Of this beautiful planet on which we live, this orb spinning through the darkness of space.
Yes. It's my third favourite orb.
Yes. What's your favourite orb?
My first two are my eyeballs.
Yes, I can see why they would be favourites. Your eyeballs being my two favourite orbs also.
Thank you.
That's okay. It's a pleasure. So until next time, thank you, dear audience, for listening, and thank you ever so much, Zezubulon Wonk.
You're very welcome. Goodbye.
Gleeful Beasts. Behind the Glee.